Shalom Mishpocha. Welcome as we go Facebook Live today, Wednesday, May the 20th, and we're starting to reopen from the coronavirus pandemic. I want to share a few ideas here or biblical concepts about fellowship as we've restarted our Shabbat services, in-person live services, and how much we craved fellowshipping together. I want to talk about the criticality of fellowship together and what that means scripturally, and why this is so important. We talk about this all the time from our physical location here at the birthplace of America, where, matter of fact, where I'm sitting right now, this property literally was a plantation of John Rolfe, who married Pocahontas, who brought the New World and the Old World together through marriage, as monarchies have done for thousands of years. And this is a very historical place. It's the Eastern Gate of America. It's the foundations of America. And part of our destiny, there was a prayer that was said twice a day at the Jamestown Fort, the first permanent settlement in America in 1607, and they faced east. This was the east gate of the fort. They faced east towards Jerusalem, and they prayed this prayer, and part of that prayer was that Jew and Gentile be reconciled together as one, that the days of iniquity would come to an end and God's glory be revealed in all the earth. And this is critical, and I believe it is the foundation and destiny of America. It's our DNA. That prayer is saturated in the atmosphere. It's in the ground. It's been buried there. And it was said there for over 90 years until the capital moved to Williamsburg, and then eventually up to Philadelphia, New York, and that's the rest is history. But why is this so critical? And why are we seeing this reemergence of the Messianic Jewish movement? And why is this critical to this hour? And what's the connection to fellowship? Well, the key to all this is Romans 11. And Romans 11, Paul establishes that the kingdom, Israel, is a Jewish-rooted olive tree, and that native and natural branches are grafted into this olive tree. And what he's actually laying the foundation for is for the kehelet, for the congregation, for community, for fellowship. And in Romans 11:11, he says, in that case, isn't it that they have stumbled, Israel, with the result that they have permanently fallen away? He said, heaven forbid. So right off the bat, God's not done with us, with the Jewish people, with Israel. And to understand this and why this is so critical is because most people today are not farmers. And so when Paul talks about this grafting, this is lost in a significant amount of population around the world today. But in Israel, where land is limited, if you want to increase your harvest of olives, if you want to increase your olive groves, there's not more land. So what they do is they graft wild olive branches into the cultivated olive tree. Now, cultivated olive trees bear fruit. Wild olives, olive trees, olive branches don't bear fruit. So if you understand that a bird or an animal will take a olive off into a vadi somewhere, eat the flesh of the fruit, the seed comes out, it passes through the animal, it gets its own little fertilizer packet, the wild olive grows, but it doesn't produce fruit. So it increases harvest, it increases orchard. The farmer will go and take a native cultivated olive tree, cut the branches off. He'll lay them at the base of that tree where they'll remain dormant. He then will go out into the countryside, find these wild olive trees, and cut several branches off that are healthy and bring them back to the cultivated stump. He'll then, with great precision, take these branches and drill the exact same size hole into the stump of what that branch is. Because if the hole's too big, the graft won't take. If the hole's too small, you can't get the branch in it. So it's got to be just right. And so first, this tells us that with great precision, God has called us in and grafted us both together, Jew and Gentile, into his kingdom. It's very profound. And so when that branch is brought in, there's something significant that happens that we understand today. The DNA of the wild branch doesn't match the DNA of the cultivated branch. So right off the bat, through photosynthesis, the branch cannot feed the root. The root force feeds the branch. So the grafted in wild branch is being force fed and sustained provision by the natural branch, the natural stump, the cultivated tree. And this takes place now for about a 3.5 year period. In Romans 11, verses 18 through 20, Paul said that don't boast if you were better than the branches, the native branches. However, if you do boast, remember that you are not supporting the root is supporting you. So you will say branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. True, verse 20, but so what? They were broken off because of their lack of trust. However, if you keep your place only because of your trust, so don't be arrogant. On the contrary, be terrified. So the cultivated olive tree with the grafted in wild branch is left alone for a period in order for the grafting to heal. The root is force feeding that branch during the entire time without receiving nourishment. And so, when we understand this, listen, even in an organ transplant today, you can have kidneys transplanted, you can have lungs transplanted, you can have a heart transplanted, but your body, because the DNA doesn't perfectly match, your body will attempt to reject those transplants as a foreign body out of your body. Those who have received organ transplants have to take medicine the rest of their lives to overcome the body's desire and to push out these organs from their body because the DNA doesn't match. So when that wild graft is healed, the farmer will then go out and get the native branches and put them back into the tree. And so when he does this, it's the same exact surgical precision. The branch and the hole have to be exactly, if the hole's too big, the branch doesn't graft. If the hole's too small, he can't get the branch in. So now the wild branches are grafted in. Now he's grafted in the native branches. And he has to do this because the wild branch can't feed the root because the DNA doesn't match. If that native branch isn't grafted back in, the entire tree shall perish. It shall die. Listen, mishpocha, to put this in contextual understanding, 2,000 years ago, the native branches, the Jewish branches were cut off the Israeli tree so the Gentiles could be grafted in. We're now at the season of ingrafting of the native branch. And if the native branch, the Jewish people, aren't brought back into the kingdom, the entire tree shall perish. This is so critical. This is why Paul said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it's God's plan of salvation, and to those who believe, to the Jew first and also to the Gentiles in Romans 1:16. There must be outreach and evangelism to our people that the tree may live. And when we're brought back, we're grafted back in just like the Gentile branch, like the wild olive branch, and that grafting process is the blood of Messiah Yeshua. That's how both Jew and Gentile are grafted back into the kingdom of God. This is so profound. But when that native branch is brought in, immediately the tree senses what? It's my own branch, the DNA matches. And so immediately that dormant branch, the native branch, comes back to life, begins photosynthesis, and begins feeding the root. And then what happens is the most phenomenal supernatural thing. And this is literally in agricultural books. In the book I wrote, I list all these references. The native and the wild DNA are in the same tree stump now. And this brings on a process that's called provocation or jealousy. It becomes a competition, if you will, inside the stump between these two DNAs. And in this, the root absolutely flourishes 1,000-fold. And here's what's phenomenal. Both the native and the wild branch, through this jealousy, will both produce fruit, 1,000-fold harvest of what the tree had before the wild olive branch and the native are grafted back into the same tree. This is supernatural. Romans 11:15, Paul said, for if their casting Yeshua aside means reconciliation for the world, if the Jewish people being cut off from the tree meant reconciliation for the Gentiles, what will accepting him mean? It will be life from the dead. To conceptually understand this ingrafting process of the one new man, it's not just so Jew and Gentile can be brought into the native Jewish Israeli olive tree, but in this we will see life from the dead. The John 17 worldwide harvest that the world will know. We will provoke the world to jealousy and into the kingdom before the final return of Yeshua and the establishment of his reign upon this earth. And as we do this is so phenomenal, because this analogy is nothing short of a supernatural revelation. The mystery that was once hidden has now been revealed. And so what does this mean? Because in this time of anarchy, we've learned the importance of fellowship, but it's not just Gentile fellowship or Jewish fellowship, it's us coming together. And here's my final synopsis of this whole thing. Ephesians 2, this is the one new man chapter, Ephesians 2, verses 14 and 15, it says, for he himself is our shalom, Yeshua. He has made us both one. Both who? Jew and Gentile, made us both one and broken down the mechitza, the center wall of partition that divided us by destroying in his own body the enmity occasioned by the Torah. We had God in the Torah, the Gentiles didn't. That arose enmity between us. He tore that wall down, that enmity, with his commands set forth in a form of ordinances. He did this in order to create in himself from the two one new man, a single new humanity. He made the bride, not Christian, not the church, not the Messianic synagogue, but the bride, which his son Yeshua will come back Yeshua himself, to take the bride. He created from the two groups one new man, thus making shalom. That term in a Greek, eirene, which means a state of national tranquility, exemption from rage and havoc, peace between individuals, harmony, security, safety, prosperity, and felicity. Listen, Mishpocha, in this hour, in this day, at no other time have we needed in such a severe fashion national tranquility. If we can capture this, this will be reconciliation of all people, of all groups. It's the top button of all racial reconciliation. Thus, the two people groups, the only two people, God doesn't see black and white, Asian, Hispanic, First Nation. He sees Jew and Gentile. And that so bothered him, he sent his own son to tear down that mechitza, that middle wall of partition, and make us one. If we can capture this, if we can pray and fast and remove that separation and truly become one, we will experience a state of national tranquility. We will see a sovereign move of God greater than ever experienced before, and we will see God's glory poured out upon all the earth. Shalom Mishpocha, may the Lord bless you and keep you.